Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis as we bring you the latest and greatest surrounding the black and gold. Dave, what's up?
Not too much, Jeff. Nice to be back with you guys. I guess the Steelers fast begins tomorrow.
That's right. Yes, that's true. Bryan Davis, what's up?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for that fast. There's been a lot to talk about, and now that we're not wondering who the quarterback's going to be, it's almost one to think that, my gosh, it's going to be this is the true offseason, I think.
Yeah, there's not a lot of these lulls. I mean, when you think about it, post Super Bowl until new league year, after minicamp until training camp, it's literally just 2 kind of months if you look at duration of time. And we're going to get you ready here at Steel Curtain Network. And we're going to start off before we look ahead by looking backwards and seeing if we learned anything from the Steelers' offseason workouts. The answer could be didn't learn a thing. But there could also be some poignant things that have happened. I think that most of us would have at least one idea or topic. Dave, I want to start with you. What is something you learned from the Steelers' offseason workouts?
Oh, that things can change big time in just a moment. I mean, well, if you're talking about, I mean, I'm mainly thinking of these 3 weeks that were OTAs and mandatory minicamp. That boy, did things really change between the two with everything and just the perception of everything. But the other thing is that it's not as big a deal of people missing the first 2 weeks. I mean, maybe it is a big deal, but it's not as highly publicized often as we realize. Like, did you guys realize before this week that, Juan Thornhill hadn't been here at all, along with DK Metcalf and others? I was surprised at the number of people that I did not realize that weren't there during the OTAs versus mandatory minicamp, when it was like, oh, look who's here now.
I knew DK Metcalf wasn't at phase 3. I didn't know about Juan Thornhill, so that's news. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't. Boswell. Apparently, Darius Slay was there for a couple of days the first week, but then wasn't there the second week. So yeah, people making a big deal that the quarterback wasn't signed until after those 2 weeks. Apparently, there was a lot of people that weren't here.
All right, Bryan, any thoughts on that, or did you have your own topic?
I have my own topic, and it has a little bit to do with what Dave had to say. But basically, what I've learned more than anything from this whole process is, you're going to love this, the media matchmakers.
Oh, gosh.
What they do is they go up and make stories for us to click on. And the bottom line to it, none of that means anything. We just come up with scenarios. This could happen. The players aren't going to like it. The players aren't going to like with them courting Aaron Rodgers. Cam Hayward comes out this week and says, nobody cares about that stuff. The only people that matter are the ones here in this locker room. That was his words. And when I hear something like that, I'm thinking, yeah. So we go ahead and we look for scenarios. When I say we, I'm just saying the media and everybody else who comments on this, the content creators. But at the end of the day, it's just what the players think and the coaches too.
Dave, did you want to chime in on that?
I mean, I don't know that I can really add too much more to it. Bryan summed it up pretty good. I'm not going to disagree with his point at all.
I'll say this: if folks think that this next 40 days, is that how many days it is, Dave?
I have it as 40 days off.
40 days. All right. So these next 40 days, if you think there's not going to be any news, rumors, speculation, well, you haven't been following the team very long. There's already reports and rumors out there that the Steelers are interested in potentially signing Jair Alexander, who was released by the Packers, potentially trading for Jalen Ramsey from the Miami Dolphins. Whether there's any fact to that or not, this is just the beginning. And with the Steelers still needing wide receiver 2, Bryan, you're right. Like, anyone that's even remotely possible, it's going to be brought up. So I think that that's a good point, that media matchmakers. I had to say that for the first time. I get to say that. So
You're embracing it.
yes, I'll embrace the media matchmakers. I'll say this. Dave, you kind of talked about who was and wasn't there. To me, I think that while being there isn't a huge deal, like Dave mentioned, I think the optics are huge. And what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about TJ Watt. And so everyone's like, it's not a big deal. I said this, I wrote the article when it was made known on Tuesday that he was not going to be in attendance. And then I kind of quote tweeted my article and said, I understand what he's doing, but I think there's going to be a selection of the fan base that's not going to be very happy with what he's doing. And Alan Saunders, he's a Fans First Sports Network. His podcast is here with us. And he chimed in on my comments and said he wouldn't have done anything anyways. I said, Alan, you're missing my point. I'm not talking about whether I think it's valuable that he's there. I'm saying the optics are horrible. And he's like, well, fans shouldn't care. But they do. Fans will care. They care about this stuff. And if you follow people, if you just see what people are saying on social media, a lot of people are like, TJ will be fine. You know, Mike Tomlin says today, Thursday, after the OTA or minicamp's done, when two sides want to get a deal done, typically it gets done. And I believe him. I think that's factual. I think he will get it done. But I will say this, though, and I'm going to stand by this. I think that TJ Watt, in terms of the way that the public perceives him, he might have gotten some bad advice from someone to not show up. If he would have shown up, talked to the media, hey, we're want to get a deal done. I want to be here for the rest of my career. I want to be a one helmet guy, as Mike Tomlin always talks about, and doesn't do anything. Everyone will be like, hey, this is great. But he didn't. He didn't show up. So I'm going to say that I think the optics are pretty bad. I don't think it matters. I think they do get a deal done. I'll let you guys tee off on that if you'd like. Dave, you want to say anything?
I mean, I have to agree that the optics aren't good. Whether or not it's valuable or not is a whole different story. As it appears that we lost Jeff altogether, but to me, it's the point of, is he really missing anything? That is true. Is it true? Can it also be true that it looks bad that he's not there? Yes. That's where it's one of those times where two kind of opposite things can be true at the same time. That yes, it looks bad. And yes, he wouldn't have really done anything anyway. So it's what's more important, to look good to the fans and through the media, or to be properly prepared for the 2025 season?
Can't you do both?
Well, in this case, no, because it's not. I mean, because I'm just saying, like you say, even if he was there, he wasn't really going to do much of anything.
Yeah, I don't think 3 days is going to make a player like in top form or not, but I understand what you're saying. Bryan, what's your take?
You know, I care about what he does in the offseason on his own more than anything. I know that this guy's in it to win it. And I know that he's been waiting for his deal. And the Steelers, I know this, they've shuffled their feet. This could have been done last year. And really,
it couldn't have been done last year. They won't do it unless they break their own rules.
Yeah, but it could have been done. Sometimes you have to. We've seen the Steelers adjust their rules so often. By having their rules, you know who the Steelers screwed? The Steelers. They screwed themselves, because they could have got them for a lot less. They could have even done this before the windfall, before Crosby, before Garrett, before everybody else. My gosh, they should probably want to get it done before Hendrickson. That doesn't look like that's going to get done anytime soon either. My gosh, the Bengals have a mess. So if you're worried about TJ Watt, look at what's going on with the Bengals right now. Yuck. They've got a number 1 draft pick, and then one of their top sacker gone, and their top tackler is now in Vegas. So they have it worse than the Steelers do. But I get what you're saying about the optics, but the Steelers have screwed themselves here. They really could have. I mean, sometimes we've seen them break their own rules.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question, Bryan. Do you think that TJ Watt's deal this year, assume he gets one from the Steelers, will be around $40 million a year? That's the going rate.
Yeah, I actually think it's going to have to be to appease TJ Watt.
So this is so good. Let me finish here real quick.
Okay.
This is where like JJ Watt going on the Pat McAfee show and running his mouth about how the Steelers should have done this, should have done that. If TJ Watt ends up getting almost $40 million a year, then guess what? You just made more money for yourself because you wouldn't have made that money if you had signed it the year before. I'm not sold that he would have signed a deal last year. To me, that's all pomp and circumstance around contractual negotiations. Hey, JJ, go on Pat McAfee and say, I would have signed a deal last year. It makes me look good. Like I'm a team player and they're the ones that are screwing the pooch. I'm not saying I buy that. And I agree with you, Bryan. The Steelers, and we don't know really, they could have extended an offer at the end of last season and said, hey, TJ, we want to get you under contract. We don't want to do this. And if everything that we know about his representation, if what we heard was true the last time we went through this, that TJ went into the room without his agent and said, let's sign the deal. His agent might be the one saying, we're not signing anytime soon. And hey, that's their right. I've always said a player like TJ Watt, why would he sign it now? I'm going to wait until Trey Hendrickson signs. I'm going to wait until Micah Parsons signs. And then I'm going to sign my deal because I think I'm better than all of them. It's just my take.
Yeah, and that's actually a good take. But really, when these other guys are getting the 40, why wouldn't TJ want it?
Oh, for sure.
Owners started this way back when. They started in baseball. I mean, I remember the first $1 million a year player in baseball. I think it was Nolan Ryan, and then the first $3 million was Ricky Henderson. And it just keeps climbing and climbing because everybody has to break the bank. And every agent, and this is what galls me more, an agent cost the Steelers fan base and the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell the services of Le'Veon Bell because he kept on chiming in his ear, a young kid's ear, that you have to be the highest paid player, the highest paid running back, the highest paid player in the league. And you're going to get it. You're going to get that. One, he didn't get it. And two, that killed his career, that entire thing. Sure, he played a little bit afterwards, but that year off killed him and everything else killed him. So I understand that you have the agents involved. And at the end of the day, when you have a guy like TJ Watt, if he wants to be here, he's going to say, Joe, Fred, whoever your name is, agent, stay out here, shop on Versace. I'm going in here and talking to the old man. And if he wants to get it done, he's going to get it done.
Dave, want to chime in?
Well, and the thing, I thought it was a very good point when you were saying that if he actually is going to he made more money by doing it this year than last year. And the thing is, once you start breaking the rules that you have established, then when do you decide which ones you break and which ones you don't? And then you're just going to get more pressure. Next thing you know, guys are saying, hey, I want a new contract during the season. No matter what your rules are, you broke them for TJ, blah, blah, blah. It's just not a good precedent. And honestly, it didn't hurt to wait for TJ. Now people are saying, oh, well, the $40 million a year and everything else. Just think of how much the salary cap's going to continue to go up. If he goes $40 million a year and it really kicks in next year when it comes to the actual salary cap percentage, it's probably going to be a lower percentage of the cap of what his last deal was. But just because of how much the cap has gone up. So sometimes the numbers, I know some people are like, oh, it's ridiculous. You can't pay $40 million. I know some people in the live chat are saying that. $40 million of the salary cap is not what it used to be, even just 3 years ago. It's a completely different ballgame because they're making so much money and the salary. I mean, what the salary cap went up like $30 million. It should be over $300 million next year.
I don't want to spend too much time on TJ. Any final thoughts from Dave or Bryan?
Yeah, I think Dave makes a fantastic point. I think they do break their own rules a lot, Dave. I will say that. And I'm not going to go too far into that. But there's a lot of things that they would have never done before that they start doing. Omar Khan started breaking some of the team's rules. The only reason they don't break more is because Art Rooney II is trying to hold on to those. I don't think these are Khan's rules. But, I mean, that's a whole different show. I think the bottom line to this whole thing, with Dave saying $40 million it's nothing because of the salary cap. I love that. And I'm also going to go ahead and quote Jeff Hartman. And I used to, when he kept on saying it, I think I argued with him the first time. Now I quote Jeff all the time and saying, salary cap really doesn't exist.
It's a myth.
It kind of is a myth because, and really, you've got the couch cushion Khan. You've got that guy that finds money anywhere and everywhere. And everybody was freaking out when you said the name Aaron Rodgers back in March because you thought you were going to pay him $40 million. My gosh, if you pay him the full 19 this year, if he gets every single bonus, guess what? The Steelers won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I did want to say, you're talking about the Steelers breaking their own rules. I think you're mistaken there. I think the Steelers break the rules that the fans or media have kind of established as the way as the Steelers have done things. That's completely different than the ones that the Steelers themselves that have come out and said, we do not negotiate with the player other than a quarterback. And I like how they have to throw in other than a quarterback because of something like that, unless it's going into the last year of their deal. Also, we do not sign contracts during the season. That's things that the team has come out and said that is the rules. Then other rules of we don't sign contracts between mini camp and training camp, which is what it was under Kevin Colbert. You always had to wait until guys came around and wait till the very last minute, like with TJ Watt the last time. That was out the window with Omar Khan right away when he signed Minkah Fitzpatrick in June. But that wasn't anything that the Steelers ever set up as a rule. That's something that we just took it as the way they did things. These other ones are ones that they have come out and said, this is how we do business.
Yeah, but if they have to, they're going to.
But they didn't.
It's fair. Right. Okay. We're going to take an early break. And then we come back, we're going to continue talking about what we learned during these offseason workouts, because I know I at least have a couple other topics to bring up. So we'll be right back. If you're watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. Stay tuned. Be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Thank you all for being patient. For those that are on the audio side, for those on the visual side, meaning the live platforms, we're fine. We're back. Let's talk about other stuff that we learned during these workouts. Dave, what else you got? Anything?
Other things from these workouts. Just a gentle reminder that outside of training camp, when fans are there, we don't get reports of team periods. That's what I would ultimately like to know. Hey, they do 7 shots even during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. We just don't get reports on what happened. We don't, and people that love to throw out there all these stats, which are obviously ridiculous, that they're doing it to, I think, kind of make fun of people that keep stats during training camp. That he's done this many completions or this many passes for this many touchdowns, this many interceptions. No, you don't get that kind of stuff during this time of year. It's, as Coach Tomlin says, it's football-like. It's not football, but it's one of those stages you just got to get through it to get to the next one.
Yeah, some teams do.
Oh, Jeff, you're muted. Then we lost Jeff again.
I understand exactly what you say or what you're saying here as far as that. And, I kind of agree with Jeff there where some teams do. But go ahead, Dave.
I didn't realize that was really about Jeff was saying some teams do?
Yes.
You talking to me now? Sorry, StreamYard's being all sorts of wonky with me.
Yeah.
Cleveland, they actually had beat writers release quarterbacks, all 15 of them they have on their roster right now. And they actually had like completion percentages and like how many passes they threw, completions in red zone, all this stuff. I'm watching this. I'm like, oh my gosh, the Steelers would freak out. The public relations would be livid. So some teams do that.
I thought that's so weird. I thought that might have even been made up. That's why I asked that, because I did see some parody accounts for Steelers throwing out some stuff. I didn't realize it was that much taking a shot at the Browns or that was actually being done. But That's not what you get, and which is nice when we do get it. But I do understand that you know why you don't at this stage.
Right. Bryan, what else did you learn? Anything?
I have learned that the Steelers really think they have a championship secondary. And that is not only with what they're seeing from Minkah Fitzpatrick, they really feel like Minkah Fitzpatrick had an off year. And also, you heard the quote. I don't know if you heard the quote, but there was a quote from Juan Thornhill that I know they really like him. He is an upgrade from DeMonte KZ. And one of the things that you heard from Juan Thornhill is that they are doing everything for me to go ahead and get that football. And of course, you have Deshaun Elliott there. So you have three safeties they really like. They really like what they have in a guy like Big Play Slay. Can't call him Darius. So Big Play Slay, they like him because not only, even at 34 years old, not only is he a ball hawk and a winner, they know that he's mentoring Joey Porter Jr. Now, Gerald Alexander, the cornerbacks coach, also came out and said some things about Joey Porter Jr. And what he said was that really we're trying to have him more patient and almost lay off at the line of scrimmage and not make those mistakes and be more patient when going for the ball. So you know how many he had 15 penalties last season, and most of them were because of pass interference, and a lot of them were due to impatience. So Joey Porter's looking to grow as well. He's working hard. He's getting mentorship back there, but those five guys alone make up a pretty nice unit, and they could really help teams from running it up on the Steelers if they're patrolling that later part of the field.
Dave, any thoughts on what Bryan said about the secondary?
Yeah, I'll get to that later.
Okay. I'm going to ask you all a question for mine. And that is, this is an honest question. It's not just a setup. When was the last time the Steelers had a first-round draft pick that they openly said at this stage of the game was getting first-team reps with any unit? Can you think of one?
I can think of two.
Okay, go for it.
The most recent was basically Najee Harris. They
True.
put him in.
I'll give you that. Okay.
And then before that, I think the last time they did it was Ryan Shazier.
I thought Tanya didn't get first team run last year, did he? I didn't think so.
No. I'll give you one too.
Okay, go for it.
Marquise Pouncey.
Did he get first team?
I don't think he got it this early. I think he won out. He won it in camp, and that's why they moved on from. Why am I Harding? Right?
Nah, he wasn't.
Harding's Hartwig.
Hartwig. I was going to say. I knew I didn't. When I said came out, I'm like, that's not right. But what is it? Yeah. So they didn't go into it thinking Pouncey was going to be the guy, but after the preseason, they knew Pouncey was the guy.
All right, I must be mistaken then. I thought
I don't think he was.
I know he was a week one starter, but
yes.
Well, no, I'm talking about in mini camp.
Yeah,
they're already
June.
Saying he's getting first team run that early.
Then it's very rare. Then it's very rare.
What's part of the other reason he's getting first team run? Because Cam's not necessarily out there.
It's still significant. I think.
Yes, but I agree.
And what I'm talking about, for those that don't know, Carl Dunbar, defensive line coach for the Steelers, came out and said that Derek Hartman, first-round draft pick, is getting first-team run right now with the defense. And I heard that. I was like, wow, they really just said that. I mean, maybe it was Coach Mitchell, but they used to never say that. I mean, when Cam was a rookie, and Cam spoke about this week, where he's like, look, we were coming off of a Super Bowl appearance. That team was loaded. Like, I was just trying to get on the field, let alone be on the field with the starters. And it's a different world compared to when Cam was a rookie in the 2011 draft. But I look at that and said, they at least see highly enough of him right now to say that about him. And I think that speaks volumes. I really do. That speaks almost as loudly as Fa'u Tanu essentially beating out Broderick Jones at right tackle last year. Now, that was not in mini camp. That was after training camp. But still, they don't usually do this with rookies. And here they are. And they're getting this kid out there. I'm like, oh man, I tell you what, like, this kind of gets me a little excited for Derek Hartman. Not gonna lie.
But it also helps the position he plays, and that is
Absolutely.
it is a rotational position. So that's good. So I mean, think about that. If you would have seen that with Fautanu last year, you would have been like, that when you're right tackle, you're out there 100% of the snaps unless you're hurt. So that's a much bigger deal. But you're right. It is a huge deal that they're doing it, but they should be. It still doesn't mean that they won't limit his snaps early in the season, even if he does start. I think they'll still do that for his own benefit and everything. But it's good to see him getting a lot of work in there.
Bryan, go ahead.
We would see right through that too, because there's some players that when you know that there's nothing behind him, when they drafted him, he was a no-brainer to be drafted, or at least the position was a no-brainer to be drafted. And the reason it was is because everybody knew that they had a huge hole. You had Larry Ogunjobi gone. Even if he wasn't gone, you would have had Larry Ogunjobi with a 6-week suspension. So who are you going to put there? Daniel Elaweke, who is getting second team nose tackle reps, but who are you going to? It's going to be a joke if you're putting someone else out there. Gosh, you don't even have a Chris Wormley anymore to go ahead and put the charade on. I mean, so at this point, it's like, you know what? Forget about smoke screens. Say, hey, the guy, he was drafted to be the guy, and right now he's the guy.
I think that if the Steelers wanted to play that game that you just talked about, that we would see right through, they'd say, Isaiah Loudermilk has earned it. He's been with the team for a long time. Or Dean Lowry's a veteran. He's been around the block a time or two. We're going to have him out there. We're going to have the young guy learn from it.
They did it last year, too, at center. They did. The Steelers did it at center last year. Because everybody knew the Herbig thing. The Nate Herbig thing was a joke.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they actually did have, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate Herbig was taking reps at minicamp last year over Zach Frazier, I do believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Yeah. Why? And I get it. You want to make sure that you have him in backup position, but why not arm the guy that you see as your future right away as the guy to go ahead and get every single rep instead of playing a game?
Yeah. Dave, all right. Whose turn is it? I think it's Dave's again.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
You guys are. I just like commenting more. I'm coming up with terrible stuff. You guys are coming up with
just
great
say
stuff.
pass. Go ahead, Bryan.
Because I just like commenting on this good stuff you guys said.
I also learned that they really like the progress of Keanu Benton, and there's been a lot of people that have been kind of cooling on Keanu Benton. And I don't think that's a reason why. But when I'm talking about Keanu Benton, I'm also going to throw in other guys in his draft class. All of those guys have changed their weights. Keanu Benton came in with a different weight. Then you have the two Georgia guys, Brojo, who we were just talking about, Broderick Jones, and then Darnell Washington, who, my gosh, I mean, you get a Mercedes Lewis comparison from your new quarterback, the veteran, Aaron Rodgers. That's weighty. That's a big deal. But he came in 15 pounds lighter. Broderick Jones came in 15 pounds lighter. Keanu Benton looks different as well. So with all of that, you've got guys coming in playing their third year that's saying, all right, the kidding around is now over. I'm seizing the day, because they know what's up ahead too.
I'll chime in first here, if you don't mind, Dave. I think the weight thing is a Steelers issue. Let me be specific. So Broderick Jones he's really athletic, very athletic. I think he ran the fastest 40 time for the tackles, at least, probably guards and centers as well when he was at the combine. I have a feeling the Steelers might have said, "Hey, we might need you to bulk up a little bit, get some more size on you." And then all of a sudden he does that. Heck, last year, Kevin Smith said in Latrobe saying he looks like crap. He looks overweight. He's wearing a sweatsuit underneath his pads. Looks like he's trying to drop some weight. Sometimes players can kind of spiral out of control when you tell them to gain some weight. They don't gain the right kind of weight. They're lethargic. They're slow. And now the coaching staff is like, okay, bad idea. Let's get you back to where you were. Darnell Washington, we already know that everyone talked about him as another tackle. So maybe they said, hey, Darnell, why don't we try bulking up a little bit? Maybe you could be a bona fide other tackle. And Darnell Washington openly said, I haven't been this light. I feel great since college when I was at Georgia. Sometimes guys don't handle adding on, even if it's just 15 pounds. A lot of people are like, oh, it's just 15 pounds. That's 15 pounds. Go to a gym, go to your basement, find a bag of something that's 15 pounds and carry it around for a while. It's significant. And so I don't think that this is necessarily the players that were like, yeah, screw this. I'm not training this off season. I think the coaches might have said, because this happens all the time. It happens in high school. It happens all the way through college. They tell players at the end of the year, we want you to put on X number of pounds. We want you to be able to lift speed, whatever. I don't know. I'm glad that they lost the weight. I think it's going to help them, but I don't necessarily think it's an indicative of them being like lazy or anything. Dave, what's your thoughts?
No, but I do. I'm sorry, Dave. I do feel that it's one of those things that I think they're seizing the day now.
Yeah. Dave?
Okay. Thoughts? For someone that's, had dealt with weight loss issues and things like that in their life, it's a lot of it is mental. So to me, when I hear that someone's, cut down their weight a little bit, like particularly Broderick Jones, looking at that as an example, to me, that tells me that he's probably in a better mental place where he needs to be coming into things. Because last year, was it all physical? Was it submental? Was it a little bit of both? All kinds of things like that. But if you're, to me, in order to drop that weight, that really takes that takes some mental fortitude to do that. So that kind of shows your mental dedication to it as well. That's what I really like about it, is that when you're doing what. Yeah, could the weight be good? Could the weight be bad? No, but if you're coming into it better mentally to start the year, that's what I really like to see.
Good. Bryan, you have something else to say?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because one thing that I was starting to hear, and I don't know if you were hearing it last year, but I don't know whether it was the fans or there was some writers saying it, they were throwing the L word on Broderick Jones, and it was lazy. And Jeff, I agree with you 100% that it's probably the coaching staff saying, hey, bulk up. But when you see a guy come in that big sometimes, and then you see him wearing a sweatsuit and you see him more lethargic, then you get the lazy tag. And especially when he's not playing well, you get the lazy tag. There might be a lot of reasons that he wasn't playing well at the beginning. One, Kevin Smith talks all the time about him playing out of position. Also, that right arm being hurt and on a brace last year at the beginning didn't help him either. So there's a lot of things to look at. A lot of people, they love the B word too, bust, and they want to throw that out early. We just talked about one of the greatest players currently for the Steelers at all time. You know how long it took Cam Hayward to really see the field? Yes, he had guys in front of him, but it took him 3 years to really look like the guy, because there was a lot of people thinking that he was picked because of his last name, and no one's saying it now.
Right. All right. I want to go to something else I learned, and that is, Dave. Dave, do you want to say anything?
Well, I'm just going to say it's funny how he was drafted in the first round because of his last name picks have turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. All right. I was thinking about this, and Dave, you brought this up just for your first topic of what we learned, and that's how things can change quickly. I think the ripple effect of Aaron Rodgers will be two things. One, it'll be positive. And I think two, it'll be felt by more people than you think. And when I say that, I'm talking about, think back to when Pat Freiermuth, who I think is going to benefit the most from Aaron Rodgers. I honest to goodness feel this way. I think he's going to have a breakout year. When did he have his most productive seasons? Not so much from yards and touchdowns. When did he have his best season? In your opinion?
Last year was pretty good, but he was older. But his best was probably the best numbers was his rookie year with Ben.
That's exactly right. When Ben Roethlisberger was the one throwing him passes, I thought that was his best season. He scored a lot of touchdowns. He was able to do the things that Pat Freiermuth is good at, finding the soft spots in the zone. He's not a burner. He's not a Travis Kelce. Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to help him in that regard. But don't think that this also won't have an impact on someone like Zach Frazier. a second-year center snapping the ball to Aaron Rodgers, protections, getting the team set up in the right system and talking with him. Don't think that someone like Will Howard isn't going to benefit from being able to learn and watch this guy. You may hate his guts. The fan base, a lot of the people in the media really hate his guts. You know what rarely ever happens is you rarely hear a teammate say anything bad about Aaron Rodgers. He's typically liked in the locker room, and it's the media that can't stand him for whatever reason. I think that he's going to have a really positive impact on the offense, whether that leads to success, touchdowns, or anything like that. You can't replace experience. And that's exactly what he brings to still a very, very, very young offensive unit. Dave, you wanted to say something.
I've got two. First of all, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard. Normally, you're like, was the vet going to teach the young guy how, all this stuff from all his knowledge? You could look at it this way, but y'all's going to look at it another way. This is Aaron Rodgers is learning as well because he's new to the team.
Right.
He can teach Will Howard, not even teach him, but they're learning together. This is a guy that's played 20 seasons and a guy that's coming into his first season, and they are both learning the offense together. So not only that, Aaron Rodgers could very well be helping and showing Will Howard how to learn because he's doing it. He's doing it as well. That's one. But two, I'm really glad. I was saying because I know, Jeff, you had said before, it's got to be before mandatory minicamp. I'm like, I'm not, even if it's not, I wouldn't take it off the table. But boy, am I glad that Aaron Rodgers did. And that's him being in his Steeler uniform and throwing his first passes and all that stuff is behind us. Not something that we've got to talk and hear about and look at for the next 40 days in anticipation of him in his first practice with the Steelers. Now, could he get his first team practice with the Steelers? Yeah. But that big hype and hoopla, and I thought it was interesting when Mark Cabali was saying about, wow, I've never seen this much media here for the first day of mandatory minicamp, because everyone was with the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers and the big story. I'm glad the big story was done, that the start of the big story was done in June and not the end of July.
Fair. I like that too. Bryan, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely 100% correct. It goes back to everything that we've said about, it's the players that matter. I'm going to throw in another guy that I think, Jeff, to your list. I think Calvin Austin is going to benefit more and more than a lot of guys, because remember that third game of the season last year against the Chargers? He goes across the middle, takes the ball and splits the secondary and goes forever. And, that was a big score. Then all of a sudden, when Russell Wilson comes along, it seemed like Calvin Austin was more of your deep threat, and they were trying to throw him moon balls and throw him long balls. And that's really not his forte. So I think a guy that uses the middle of the field like Aaron Rodgers, and a guy that can exploit the middle of the field real well with his speed, and he's got decent hands. He has good hands, and that's Calvin Austin III. I think it's a match made in heaven. As far as Aaron Rodgers go, I am I've been 100% in for a while, but now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to offer to Aaron Rodgers to be his accountant in a way. And what I mean by that, I'm keeping receipts for you, Aaron. I'm keeping receipts because in December, when people are shouting MVP at you, when people are singing your praises, I'm going to say, remember what you said in June?
Yeah, good point. Bryan, do you have another topic, or do you want me to do one?
Calvin Austin was my topic.
Okay, that's fair.
So I can go ahead and say that. I think that's it.
Okay. I only have one more. And this is just an observation more than anything. Now, I didn't learn this, but it's just the fact that you see him in black and gold, and it's a little different. DK Metcalf is a freak of nature. That's his nickname for me. I'm going to call him the freak or the freak of nature every single time he plays, because he is human beings that size are not supposed to look like that, move like that, run like that, jump like that. It's amazing this guy is a monster. And I just think about all the times now that, Aaron Rodgers has such a quick release. How often are they going to run this slant to DK Metcalf, let him box out a small little defensive back and get 5, 6, 7 yards, or break a tackle and we're off to the races? But one more thing I like about DK Metcalf, and he was speaking to the media this week, and he said, they asked him about the play, which was an interception against Arizona at Arizona in prime time, because I remember loudmouth Chris Collinsworth on the call. It was on Sunday Night Football, and it was when Buda Baker intercepted the pass, and we all seen the clip where he just runs him down. He said, "That's who I am. I don't quit. I don't take plays off." And he has a little bit of that Antonio Brown. Remember, Antonio Brown used to catch a pass and he would sprint to the end zone. This is young. This is Antonio Brown, not AB. But they said he was the hardest working player. DK Metcalf has a little of that in him, and that's contagious. That is contagious. You compare that to the guy that was traded away, and you never really heard that. You never really had that guy that was seen like he was all in, that he didn't just say it, he embodied it and he did it. And so DK Metcalf, welcome to the Steelers. I'm really looking forward to watching him play football this year.
I love that you say that, Jeff. And I also will just throw in the fact that a lot of people, whether they were talking about Pickens and Metcalf together, but more as super crash out brothers.
Yeah.
I really haven't seen much of a crash out ever from this guy off the field that much. Now I've seen him body slam a dude
Yes.
and
on the field.
and not have a problem doing it, but I've never heard him open his mouth for anything like that. So, and I know that was one of the worries about him when he was drafted, but the Steelers came really close, 2 picks, and they got Deontay Johnson instead.
Deontay Johnson. Dave, any thoughts on DK Metcalf?
Yeah. Bottom line is what you said. You don't have to question his effort.
Right.
That
nice.
is a night and day difference from last year.
And the year before, because Deontay Johnson, you had to question his damn effort too. Sorry, pardon my French, but still. DK Metcalf will probably dive on a loose ball. He will probably block for his teammates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What a breath of fresh air.
And not just occasionally to say, look, I did it. He'd do it every time.
Exactly.
Without question.
Yeah. Will he show up on time, though? Only time will tell.
Yes.
All right. I'm done. That's all the ones I wanted to cover. I could keep going, but I'll stop for now. We want to get to some trivia. Dave, you got it?
I do have some trivia. This actually, I don't know why I just wanted to look this up. But this has to do with the Steelers secondary. If you guys were to estimate right now, who do you believe would be the starting, I'll say outside because that's just the way they look at it, left and right cornerbacks for the Steelers this year?
JPJ and Slay.
Yes. Slay and JPJ. Yeah, you're right. When's the last time the Steelers, not going into the season, but at the conclusion of the season, and when you look back at who started the most games, Pro Football Reference, where I'm looking at, they do it. They look at the positions and how many games, different players started to figure out who the starter was for the season. When's the last season the Steelers had the same 2 players as the starting cornerbacks in back-to-back years?
Okay. Is Willie Gay one of them?
See, Willie Gay is where it gets really interesting because was he starting on the outside or not, or was he starting a number of games as well because they were starting off at nickel and things like that? I will tell you that no, Willie Gay did not start with him and the same other person in back-to-back years, at least under Mike Tomlin.
Are we talking Bryant McFadden and Ike Taylor?
Brian McFadden and Ike Taylor. When would that have been?
That would have been around 2009.
Yeah, honestly,
well, he was drafted in 2005.
Yeah, but
you had to stay in there.
I'll be honest with you. I went as far back as 2006 to look at it just to see under the Tomlin era, because that was going to be a follow-up question.
Well, then my answer.
Sense there. What's that?
My answer, if you were going back to 2006, it's Ike and Deshae.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Joe Hayden and Ross Cockrell.
You're half right.
I bet the Hayden's right.
I bet you the Hayden's right too.
There was a season in there where the same person started opposite of Joe Hayden.
Dang it.
And Hayden came in around 16 or 17, right?
I'm pretty sure. What year did the Browns not win a game?
I don't know. I'm going to go with John Maleska, though. Is it Steven Nelson?
Yeah, I like that.
That would be my buddy, Steven Nelson.
Yeah,
that didn't like when I quoted Pro Football Reference and how many touchdowns he gave up that season. And that was 2019 and 2020. That is the only time going back to under the Mike Tomlin era that they've had the same two cornerbacks listed, at least on Pro Football Reference, as their two starters for the season in back-to-back years. I will tell you that I gotta bring it back up if you guys will give me just a moment. The first season of Mike Tomlin was actually a back-to-back season. It was the second year of two players doing that. Do you guys know who that was?
Well, Ike's definitely one of them.
Yeah, that was, you've already mentioned it. It was Ike and Deshae. I'm pretty sure they were 2007 and 2006. If I'm looking at this, yes. But
Deshae was entrenched for a long time.
Mm-hmm. But here's what's interesting. Hold on, I gotta look at this one. Okay, hold on. I got to make sure I quote this right. So give me a second. I'm just double checking. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay.
Well,
so no.
Okay.
So yeah, but I'm pretty sure. I don't think that was 2005. I don't think it was. No, and 2005. So they had 3 years in a row. But then after that, the only time they've had back-to-back starting corners was in 2019 to 2020. So it's kind of been a carousel of moving in and out there a lot.
You know, Deshae was that guy. I like to compare him to Hines Ward a little bit. He was a guy that's been there. He came at the same time that Hines Ward came in 98, and they were always looking for somebody better. Then they realized this guy's pretty good. And Deshae was one of them.
He's a crappy landlord, though.
I didn't know that about Deshae.
Oh, he owned properties in Pittsburgh, and there were like drug deals happening there. It got raided and stuff. Like the house owned by Deshae Townsend. I'm like, Deshae Townsend, really?
And he's probably back home in Birmingham or wherever because I know he played in Alabama. He's probably going, what?
Is that it, Dave, or is there another part?
Yeah, I was going to say both of the. You know, I said they had several years of Deshae and Ike Taylor. Who was with Deshae before Ike Taylor? Who was the other starter? And I'll tell you, it was in 2004. Oh
my gosh, that was a huge season for them.
Yeah,
and. It was McFadden came around in 2005. Wasn't Ricardo Coakley because he was a rookie in 2004.
It wasn't like Dwayne Washington still hanging around, was it?
Chad Scott.
Was Chad Scott still on the team in 2004?
Chad Scott started 7 games, but that is not who they have listed as the other starter because somebody else started 10 games.
Oh, wow.
Which is why I say sometimes this gets confusing because it could even be where it was a nickel person who started some and the nickel started some on the outside. You know, sometimes it's a little bit of a gray area in there. But I'll give you another hint. Okay. Their first and last name started with the same letter.
I was going to say Hank Poteet, and that's wouldn't be it.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing.
He was drafted by the Steelers, then was gone for 7 years.
Willie Williams.
To come back for 2 more.
Okay.
That was Willie Williams. He started 10 games that year.
I forgot about that comeback.
Yeah.
And Willie Williams won a title with him in 05, right?
Yes.
Hold on. I just had him up there. Where'd it go? Willie Williams. He was there. His last season was 05.
So he gets a ring.
Yeah. Yep. 1-time Super Bowl champ.
So played in 30, played in 40. How about that?
There you go. Good trivia. Good trivia. I like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Bryan, some final thoughts. Go for it.
All right. So we talked about a whole lot of stuff. I want to go ahead and talk about culture. And you learn a lot about players and culture. And it seems like this is a team that I almost feel that they're more bonded by going through this Aaron Rodgers experience. And now that he's here, I think they're very happy that he's here and everything's good. One player that impressed me more than anybody, and this just came out in the last couple of days, it's Corliss Waitman. He could have made a lot of money, but he said, I just want to have a uniform with the Steeler emblem on it. And that means a lot to me. So kudos to you, Corliss Waitman. I think you have a lot of integrity, and you're more of a team guy, and you're more of a culture guy than anything for not taking money for it and giving it up, not holding it hostage. Because if you know the Robert De Niro, Wesley Snipes movie from 1996 called The Fan, you know that they'll murder you over an old number. So with that being said, I love it. Corliss Waitman, I have a lot of respect for you.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
Yeah, I was shocked when you brought that up on an episode of Here We Go, the Steelers Show, that Coach KT Smith was not familiar with that movie.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
I know. That's a crazy one. Anyway, let's get back to the Steelers. To not get back to the Steelers for the next 40 days. Hey, enjoy this time. Jeff says it very often. Don't wish away your summer. At the same time, it's not, there's a difference between not wishing it away, or to me, when it's like, oh man, summer vacation is done. It's the reward for after your downtime is complete, of like, well, oh man, summer vacation's done, got school, everything else, but at least I get the Steelers. To me, I'm at a point right now where I feel that this is exciting for the Steelers. It's crazy because so many things happened in stages. I don't think a lot of fans see how much the Steelers changed. Some are still insisting that this is still the same old team with the same old results and everything else. No, they didn't change the high ups on the coaching staff or things of that nature. But at least the Steelers did not sit back and say, hey, we're going to try to get both of these quarterbacks back and run it back. And, we're going to keep the same receivers. We got to sign the same running backs and keep the same, keep this offense, especially the same, and run it back and see if we can just do better next year. Now, will it be better? We don't know. We hope. And that's what we do with Steelers fans, but at least it wasn't, the trying to do the same thing over and over again and looking for a different result. Could this be a disaster for the Steelers? Yes, it could. But you could say that a lot of times, that there's never anything guaranteed going into it, that it could just fall apart. So I'm ready for this ride that will be the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers, even if I have to wait another 40 days until we get back at it again.
All right, my final thoughts is the super chat here from Steeler Fan 69. He gave us $10. Thank you very much. He said, here's what he says. Pat, Matt, and Tat are identical triplets. Pat and Matt are a foot taller than that Tat. When asked why they said Pat and Matt were breastfed, so there was no tit for Tat. I love it.
That's close enough that could almost lines up to where you can make it a limerick.
Yes, very close. I will say this as my actual final thoughts. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I know the gentlemen here on the screen are fathers. To anyone that still has their dad around, make sure you say Happy Father's Day. Give them a call. Tell them you love them. Give them a hug if you're around them. And honestly, if your father's not around, do something that reminds you of them and do something special. And it's a special day. So happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Enjoy the U.S. Open. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next time. Another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.